President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today we proceed with the hearing and the proceedings in case 002/02, and today we'll conclude the testimony of witness to TCW 1000 who will be questioned by the two defense teams. We also have a reserve witness today, that is to TCW 848. And before we proceed to hear the testimony of today's witness and for the following witnesses, Judge Ja Sakon, who is a national judge, is absent for personal matters. And after the bench deliberated this morning, we decided to appoint the reserve judge Tumani in Ja Sakon's place for today's proceedings. Until such time, Judge Yasakon is able to return to the bench. This decision is based on Rule 79.4 of the ECCC internal rules. Ms. Jia Sihuang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals at today's proceedings. Jia Sihuang. Good morning, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present, except Ms. Antakushe, the International Counsel for Khieu Samphan, and Mr. Kevin Sonder, the standby counsel for Khieu Samphan's defense, are absent for personal reasons. Mr. Nunji is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to conclude his testimony today, that is to TCW 1000, has Mr. Muang Sawan as his duty counsel. He is ready to be called by the bench. We also have a reserve witness today, namely to TCW 848. The witness confirms through his ability he has no relationship by blood or by law through any of the two accused, that is Nuon Chit and Khieu Samphan, or through any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The witness threw an oath before the Iron Club statue this morning. Thank you. President, thank you, Ms. Jia Sihuang. The Chamber now decides on the request by Nuon Chit. The Chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Chit dated 5 January 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to participate in and be present at 5 January 2016 hearing. He affirms that his counsel has advised him about the consequences of this waiver, that it cannot in any account be construed as a waiver of his rights to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented to or admitted by this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Nuon Chit by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 5 January 2016, which notes that Nuon Chit has severe back pain when he sits for long, and recommends that the Chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, The Chamber grants Nuchi his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. The Chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nunchi can follow. This applies to the whole day. And before I invite the witness and his counsel into the courtroom, the Chamber would like to inform the parties that in relation to the request by Nunchi's defense and the co-prosecutors for statements and witnesses pursuant to Rule 87.3 and 87.4 for the Vietnamese target group. That is in relation to those documents, the floor will be given to the parties tomorrow, not today. And second, the Chamber will now issue its oral ruling on Kiel's and Pon's defense request to admit 4 documents for questioning witness through TCW 1000. The Chamber is seized of a Kiel's and Pon's defense request dated 23rd December 2015 to admit 4 written records of interview prior to the defense questioning of through TCW 1000. That is in relation to document E319/23.2. No responses were received by the deadline of 31st December 2015 fixed by the Chamber. The Chamber finds that the request is timely as the written records of interview were not available prior to the start of the case 002/02 trial. They were taken by the office of the co-investigating judges and therefore meet the prima facie standards of reliability and authenticity. Based on the defense submissions, the Chamber further considers the written records of interview relevant to case 002/02 and may be conducive to ascertaining the truth. The Chamber therefore admits all 4 requested documents. Court officer, please usher witness to TCW 1000 and his counsel Moon Sawan into the courtroom. President, the chamber would like to give the floor to the defense teams to put questions to this witness. First, the floor is given to the defense team for Nuon Chea. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Counsel. Happy New Year to everyone in the courtroom. Good morning, Mr. Witness. I have a few questions for you this morning. I have quite some follow-up questions in relation to your earlier testimony. And I would like to start with you in 1972 or 1973 when you said you joined the revolution. Was it 1973? Is my understanding correct?
Witness, I joined the revolution on the 2nd May 1972 in the Cambodia area.
I apologize, it was 72. Can you describe for me what you did in the years leading up to 17 April 75? What was your role in Cambodia during those years? What did you do exactly?
Thank you for asking me the question, and I will tell you the truth. I have nothing to hide in relation to my duties at the time. I was at that time a messenger in a platoon.
And who was your commanding officer in the platoon?
Correction, it in fact in my battalion, my military commander was Tamon, and I was his personal messenger.
And how long did you stay his personal messenger? Until when?
I began working as his personal messenger between 1972 to 1973. Subsequently, Angka sent me to the zone.
What did you mean with that? Sent you to the zone? You were in Kampot, so were you not already in a zone?
In 1972, I worked in Kampot area, and in 1973, my battalion was sent by Angka to an area called Dokonjo, and subsequently we advanced to Phnom Penh.
You said you were a messenger until 73. What did you do after 73?
After 1973 and into 1974, I was with the artillery unit.
What were your functions within the artillery unit? What did you do?
Thank you for asking me the question, and to tell you the truth, I did not do anything while I was in the artillery unit. I was simply a combatant.
What, were you involved in armed conflict? Were you involved in battles with the Lone Wolf forces while being a member of the artillery unit?
Of course, it was a war period, and we fought against the Lunol soldiers.
How big was your unit? How many men were in your artillery unit?
In the battalion, there was one company, and there were other armed units with a DK-75 or DK-80 and 60 millimeters. And I was with the artillery unit with the 81 millimeters cannon.
But within the unit, were you a mere combatant, or were you also commanding people below you?
I received orders from the upper superiors, and I was merely a combatant receiving orders in a chain of command from the unit chief up to the chief of the company.
And were you in this artillery unit until 17 April 75 when Phnom Penh was liberated?
I was with the artillery unit until 1975 when Phnom Penh was liberated. I was then assigned to go to work in Kampong Saum.
And in those years that you were a member of the artillery unit until the liberation, you yourself were never giving any orders to people below you. You only received orders. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
And is my understanding correct that after April 75, you were always in the position of a combatant, and there were never any combatants below you in rank? Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
You just mentioned a particular form of artillery that was used by you and your fellow combatants. Have you ever handled a machine gun with 12.7 millimeter guns, or bullets, or ammunition rather? 12.7, does that sound familiar?
Yes, of course, I heard of the 12.7 cannon. However, usually these machine gun was equipped on a ship and not used on land. For the infantry, they use various types of machine guns. That is the 17 or the 18 millimeters guns. And the 12.7 millimeter was used only on vessel or ship.
Did you yourself ever use 12.7 millimeter machine guns? Were you yourself a specialist in using those machine guns, or were those other people in the artillery units that were using those?
When I was attached to the artillery unit, I used to engage in firing the 17 or the 18 millimeter machine guns. They were Chinese made, and as part of the artillery unit, we were constantly on mobile.
I will get back to the 12.7 millimeters later, but my question is, were you yourself ever using the 12.7 machine gun?
I used to fire the 12.7 millimeter machine gun.
Fine, I will come back to that later, Mr. Witness. Now, 17 April 75, when Phnom Penh fell, were you stationed in the southwest zone at the time, in Kampot?
In fact, for 1975, the machine guns have been gathered for various deployments by the Navy.
But my question was, where were you on 17 April 75 and in the weeks after 17 April 75? Where were you?
In 1975, I was assigned to work in Kampong Saum.
When exactly did you arrive in Kampong Saum?
I cannot recall the date. However, I was in Kampong Saum about 3 days after the liberation.
And were you still a member of that same artillery unit?
When I was assigned to work in Kampong Saum, I was actually detached from the artillery unit, and I was integrated into an infantry unit in Kampong Saum.
Within the next, let's say, 4 weeks after 17 April 75, after your arrival in Kampong Sam, did you go to one of the islands belonging to Cambodia at the time?
In 1975, Angkar sent me to station in an island called Koh Tang Island.
When exactly did you go to Koh Tang Island?
Answer: I cannot recall it. It happened a long time ago. I cannot recall the date when I arrived at Koh Tang.
Was it within a few weeks after 17 April 75? Is that correct?
Answer: yes, that is correct.
Now, can you remember something that happened on Koh Tang Island on or around the 7th of May 1975?
Answer: there was an incident in 1975. At the time, a Maya gate was seized and it was pulled to Tang Island. There was an intensive fighting in 1975.
What exactly happened with this ship, the Maya Quez? Can you explain to us what you remember? What happened with this ship? To whom belonged this ship? What happened after the ship was arrested? Can you tell us a little more?
Answer: I cannot recall exactly of the date when the Maya gate was captured. What I knew is that the Maya gate belonged to America, and there were American crews on the Maya gate. I went up onto the Maya gate and I noticed there were American crews.
So when you were stationed at Koh Tang Island, the Maya Quest ship was stopped and the people on board were arrested. Is that correct?
Answer: that is true. After the capture of the Maya gate, people or crew members on the Maya gate were removed and sent to Kampong Sam. There was an intensive fighting on the island at that time.
Fighting between which forces?
Answer: the intensive fighting happened between American soldiers and our soldiers. There was fighting between the infantry and the naval soldiers. After the intensive fighting, American people got onto the airplane and left the place. And there was also, aerial fighting as well at that time.
Do you remember which group, which part of the revolutionary forces captured the ship? Which group was it that captured the Mayaguez?
Answer. I am telling the truth to the chamber that in 1975 the infantry had no ships and boats, and there was an order to send boats and ships to capture the Mayagay at that time.
But do you remember which group it was that captured the Mayaguez boatsmen? Who was it that arrested those people?
Answer. I did not know which group did capture the Mayagay. The order came from the division to capture the Mayagay. People on the island noticed the presence of the Mayagay, and at that time we people on the island reported to the superior or upper echelon, and the order came back to us to go and capture the Mayagay. The boats or ships that we used were seized during the time that we won the fighting with the American soldier last time. And in fact, there was an order from the division. The order came to us, and we went to capture the ship of Mayagay.
You speak about we, but was it another group that actually captured the American ship? Was it some group called the PCF group?
Answer. No. PCF was not used at that time, since PCF was a slow boat. Actually, we used the minesweeper to arrest the Mayagay, since minesweeper were fast enough, and at that time there were two minesweepers.
In your statement to the investigators of the co-investigating judge E3/9092, English ERN 00978 and Khmer 0095547, no French, you said that the PCF group captured the Mayaguez. At that time, they did not use the small vessels to capture it because the Navy did not yet have the smaller ships. Is that correct?
Answer. I may have forgotten about that point when I was interviewed at that time. I did not mean to change my statements. There were 6 PCF ships at that time, but PCF ships were too slow to chase and capture the ship of Mayagay. Actually, we did use the PCF to chase and capture the Mayagays, but since PCF were too slow, we then decided to use minesweepers instead. I may have forgotten that point when I was interviewed at that time.
But when you say we, you don't mean your unit itself, correct? You mean the division that you were part of. Is my understanding correct that whenever you speak about we, it doesn't mean your unit itself, correct?
Answer. I cannot get what you said, Counsel. Could you repeat it?
Of course, no problem. Sometimes, and maybe that is a language issue, Mr. Witness, I'm not sure. You speak about we. We captured the Mayaquez ship. But when you say we, it doesn't mean that your artillery unit did it, but rather other members of the revolutionary forces of the Southwest Zone. Is that correct?
Answer. I am not quite sure what you said. So I am a bit confused with what you said. President, you have the floor now, Judge Fence.
Let's try our luck with an open question. If you say we, whom do you mean?
Answer. The word we is not meant to refer to any specific individual or specific unit or division. We refer to I mean to the general meaning of we. It means that unless we receive an order, we could perform the task. Otherwise, we were not allowed to perform the task. I had a general, meaning when I used the word we.
I still don't understand who we is. Sorry, I'm trying to clarify the point. If you say we received orders, who do you mean?
Answer. We, who were the subordinates, were under the leadership of the Front of Democratic Cambodia, said the witness. I did not have the intention to refer to any specific individual unless there was an order. The tasks could be performed, and usually the order came to specific individual or persons. The tasks were not able to perform unless there were orders, refer to specific individual or units.
Let me read to you a little excerpt, small excerpt, Mr. Witness, from your statement, which was, by the way, not to the investigators of the OCIJ, but rather to DC Chem. That's again E3/9092. Again, the same era ends. I will read the whole excerpt. Were you in the training when they, Khmer Rouge, captured the Mayaguez ship? You answered, it happened before I studied technical skills. After the fall of Phnom Penh, I was sent to join the Navy forces, and 1 week later, they captured the Mayaguez. Question: why did they capture the Mayaguez? And then you answer, I did not know, but we were like the wild bandits because we captured it illegally. Question, literally, were we did it illegally? Answer, we captured it illegally. That ship was traveling in the international water about 10 kilometers off the coast of Ko Polo Y Island. Question, which group went to capture the Mayaguez? And then you answer, the PCF squadron group did it. At the time, they did not use the small vessels to capture it because the Navy did not yet have the smaller ships. Question, did you join them to capture it? No, I did not. I was on Ko Tang Island. What happened after that? And then you answer, after they had captured it, they assigned my group to board the ship to guard it. Not long after that, there were aircrafts coming to bomb us, so I left the ship and went back to the island. End of quote. Now, Mr. Witness, you referred to different groups. Sometimes you refer to your own unit, and sometimes you refer to other units. Is what I read to you something that you said to DC Camp? Do you remember saying this?
But answer, yes, that is true. The statements I made to DC Camp, it was my true statements to DC Camp.
So it was your unit that was tasked with guarding the ship on Ko Tang Island. Is that correct?
But answer, yes, that is true. My unit was tasked with guarding the ships, and my unit was ordered to arrest people on the ship in order to send them to Kampong Sam. I may have forgotten some points, and I may not have been details on some, points I made.
So the crew of the Mayaguez ship was sent to Kampong Som. Your unit was tasked with guarding the ship. Can you explain to us what happened next?
Answer. At that time, crew members on the Mayage were arrested and sent to Kampong Sam in the dark. And at about 10 p.m., we were told to leave the Mayage to our location, since we were told that the situation was intensive and the American troops, particularly the fighting airplanes, were coming to attack us. And as I said, the American crew members had been arrested and sent on land, and we were told at 10 p.m. to come back to our island.
So you were on Koh Tang Island when American aircrafts or helicopters came, is that correct?
Answer, yes, that is correct.
Do you remember what happened when those American helicopters approached Koh Tang Island?
Answer, the next morning, the aircrafts or helicopters landed, and there was fighting. At that time, fires was shot at each other. There were only 2 aircrafts or helicopters landing at that time, and that 2 aircrafts or helicopters were about to land, but we fired at those aircrafts and or helicopter. 1 aircraft or helicopter was shot and it fell to the ground. And after that incident, there was an intensive bombing on the island. And to counterattack the aerial, and at that time as well, the fighting ship were firing at our island, and there was intensive fighting, as I said, that happened until 7 p.m.
And who was it that shot down 1 or 2 of those American helicopters?
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness. You will have the floor now. Lead co-lawyer for civil parties. But thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honors, parties, civil parties, everyone in and around the courtroom. I observed that Counsel Kope put many questions relating to American ship. I am not sure whether the questions are within the scope of our trial. So, Mr. President, please instruct counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia whether the questions he has put are relevant to the facts before us.
To respond, Mr. President, well, time-wise, it certainly does fall within the scope. The Mayaguez incident is on around the 7th of May, 1975. And the reason why I'm focusing on this particular incident is of general interest on the one hand, but also to try to establish what exactly his position was within the revolutionary forces. I'm just trying to see if his earlier statement to DCCAM is consistent. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what his role is. Mainly I'm trying to establish when he speaks about we, whether he means the royal we of the revolutionary forces or his particular unit. So that's why I'm focusing on this incident, which again falls at least from a chronology perspective within the scope of the trial.
Council, before we make a decision, is testing the credibility your only reason to focus on this incident? Well, then perhaps you want to tell us.
The real reason? Yes, I'd be happy to, Judge Vance. Let me quote to you an excerpt from Elizabeth Becker's book. That's, Mr. President, E3/20, English ERN 00237902, French 006384463, Khmer 002 she describes in her book a cable from the United States Embassy in Bangkok. And let me read to you the whole excerpt so that you know, hopefully, what I'm trying to establish. So she writes as follows. When the fighting was over, 38 American servicemen lost their lives to save 39 crew members of the Mayaguez, and most of them died after the crew members had been released. Those dead veterans were counted as the last American casualties in the US war in Indochina. And now it comes. Washington declared a victory. The US Embassy in Bangkok, however, saw the crisis in a considerably different light. Quote unquote, local Cambodian commanders apparently have considerable autonomy and have freely exercised their authority, sometimes to the national embarrassment. The embassy wrote in a classified cable referring in part to the Mayaguez incident. Now, if you put the Mayaguez incident in a bigger context, it is obvious that whatever happened in that region of Cambodia on those islands was done in a substantial autonomous manner. And I'm trying to establish what this witness knows about the command chain up, and whether his Southwest Zone forces were in fact acting independently and autonomously. And in that light, we should see also the other two incidents that he described. Also, through the Mayaguez incident, I can have him maybe focus more in chronology when it comes to those two events. So that is the reason. Okay, yes.
President, Council, you may proceed by using that reference to put questions to this witness.
So let me get back to my question. Can you tell us exactly what happened when those American helicopters arrived and who it was, which unit it was that shot those helicopters down?
Thank you, and I'm going to tell you the truth. During the intensive fighting, my unit was on the island, and I refer to my battalion. It's a battalion 410, and there were only about 100 of us there on the island. The fighting actually became intensified on the island. There was an engagement by helicopters and by ships. And I myself actually shot down a helicopter. I was severely wounded in the fighting, and I myself was with a 12.7 millimeter machine gun, and I used that gun to shoot at the helicopter, and of course that helicopter was shot down.
And you used that 12.7 millimeter gun, which we discussed earlier, that machine gun, which was not on a ship, because you said in the beginning that that machine gun was only on ships, installed on ships. But you used it on the island to shoot down those helicopters, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now I'm trying to now establish who was it that gave you the orders to shoot back at those helicopters. Who was it? How did the chain of command go? Who gave you the orders to do what exactly?
During the fighting in a battlefield, the orders within the military rank, we focused only on eliminating the enemy by that time. So there was no order during the heat of the battlefield. Our focus was to kill the enemy, and we were autonomous, and we had to defeat our opponent.
What do you mean when you said we were autonomous?
At that time, the situation was rather tense, and we knew that we were about to be attacked, so we had to prepare ourselves. And of course, during the heat of the battle, we only focused on fighting back. And you had to remember that that was in 1975, that is, the country had just been liberated. And of course, our spirit was to engage in the battlefield and be self-mastery. Of course, if we were not a self-mastery, then we would be defeated by our enemy. And that is the spirit for all the soldiers within their respective units.
I can understand that very well, Mr. Witness, but surely the capture of the Mayaguez and the guarding of the Mayaguez wasn't done in an immediate war situation. Who ordered the capture of the Mayaguez? Who ordered the guarding of the Mayaguez? Can you tell us how that went?
the order for the capture of the magic gas came from the division through the regiment, then down through the battalion and through the soldiers on the ground. None of the battalion or a regiment was autonomous. The order had to come from the upper echelon, that is from the division, for the capture of that ship. And at that time, there was no proper regulations for the soldiers on the ground. And we had to be vigilant, and all ships or boats within the territorial waters of Cambodia had to be captured. And that was the order from the upper echelon. And we at the lower chain of command had to implement those orders. And that was our role, to capture those ships or boats.
And now I have arrived exactly at the point where I wanted to arrive, Mr. Witness. You have described the situation as follows. You were a member of an artillery unit on a remote island, and other forces captured the Mayaguez. How do you know that the order to capture and guard the Mayaguez and to arrest the crew members came from the upper echelon? How did you know?
President Judge Lavange, you have the floor.
Je me demande.
I'm asking myself if the question put by Council Koppe shouldn't be rephrased. I believe I heard that this witness had been detached from an artillery unit, so he was no longer depending on an artillery unit when he was on the island, unless I'm mistaken. So I don't know why you're referring to this artillery unit in particular.
I presume he was still a member of the artillery unit, having the control of a 12.7 millimeter machine gun with which he single-handedly gunned down that helicopter. So I presume he was still within the artillery unit. But I'm happy to ask.
Council Koppe, I believe that the witness was quite clear about this. He explained that the 12.7 millimeter machine guns had been grouped together to be given to the Navy, and he said himself that he was no longer part of the artillery and that he had been detached from his unit to be assigned to that island.
Well, to be honest, Judge Lavergne, I don't think there was a Navy yet in May 75. I think Division 164 wasn't formed until end of 75. I presume this witness was still a member of his artillery unit, or at least part of the Southwest Zone Forces. But I'm happy to ask him. Mr. Witness, were you, when you were stationed at Koh Tang Island, were you a member of the same Southwest Zone Forces, and were you still a member of an artillery unit or of a different unit?
After I left the Southwest Zone, I was assigned to Kampong Saum, and later on the Division 164 was formed, and it was part of the West Zone. By that time I was no longer with the Southwest Zone, but I was with the West Zone. And that's what happened. And by that time, I was no longer involved with the artillery unit. And when the attack occurred, I was part of the infantry unit. And these machine guns namely 12.7 and 12.8, was not with the artillery unit. And usually we had to follow the instructions from ONCA, and if we had to maintain the machine guns that we had earlier, for example, the 12.7, we were to be responsible for the maintenance and for holding of that machine gun.
Very well. Going back to the 7th of May, you were not anymore a member of the Southwest Zone Forces, but the West Zone Forces. You were not anymore a member of an artillery unit, but of another unit within the West Zone Forces. Now my question is, how did you know that the commander of the Koh Tang forces belonging to the West Zone had in fact received an order from the upper echelon? How did you know that at the time?
I was certain because I was a member and a combatant in the respective units, and we knew the cadres within the area, either at the battalion or regiment levels. I knew cadres within the battalions or the regiments, or even with the division levels. I knew those cadres. I even knew their names and which unit or battalion or regiment they were attached to. For that reason, I knew the orders came from the upper echelon to capture that ship. And the unit was assigned to capture the ship, and a separate unit would be deployed to hold that ship. As I said, my unit was sent to station in Tang Island. And then we would be responsible for various duties, namely our unit was tasked to guard the Tang Island. And for that reason, I knew that the orders came through the chain of the military command. Or you can say, I knew all those from the battalion up to the regimental or to the divisional level. And the Division 164 actually had 7 regiments, and I also knew cadres within those 7 regiments. And as a rule of thumb, combatants in a unit had to know their cadres or the superiors within the respective unit. And of course, there's usually a communication within the regimental level. For example, we had to know who was the commander for Regiment 61 or Regiment 62. For example, Nhan was military commander for Regiment 61, etc. So I knew most of those commanders. And as I said, most of the combatants knew their superiors or cadres. And I thank you for asking this question, and allow me to clarify this point. Of course, as a soldier, we need to know our superiors or commanders. And of course, as a subordinate, you had to know your commander, because usually the works came from your commander or your superiors. President, thank you. The time is appropriate for a short break. We'll take a break now and return at 25 to 11. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties. and invite him as well as his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 25 to 11.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ